Welcome to the Den, the Dingus Den.
Welcome to the Dingus Den for the first episode of this new sort of comic club series here. I'm dubbing it Community Comic Club, where anyone here in my Discord is welcome to join in at any time. And so this serves as an opportunity for anyone that wants to can join into these special comic clubs. So I have a couple guests here. Talk about our first story here, Green Lantern, No Fear. Before we get into that really quick, though, just a quick announcement I do want to make. Something I'm very happy about is my channel here has officially reached over 100 subscribers. So keep an eye out for a special celebration stream. I have some stuff planned for it, and so I'll be working on getting all that stuff set up and finalized, and hopefully having that happen sooner than later. And this comic club series will be still going along. This isn't going to take the place of what I normally do for comic club. My normal on video comic club stuff will still be going at the same pace as it has been, and so this is just going to be something in addition to just something that's a lot easier to set up and a fun way that I think to get more of the community involved in here. And so without further ado, though, let's just go ahead and get into it. Of course, during any point where anyone is welcome to join this conversation anytime. For anyone that's in the audience, you can always just raise your hand up, join in. And if you're listening to this afterwards and you're not in the Discord, feel free to message, and I'll just send you an invite. Always the more the merrier. Love to spread the comic joy. Always love discussing these comic stories anytime, anywhere. So, but yeah, without further ado, we have right here with me, I have Ian with me, Mr. Nerfnet here, and Caleb.
Hello.
Blue. Good to have you all here.
Yep.
Great to see you all here. Really appreciate it. And so, I guess as I do with as I usually do on Comic Club, and also I just want to say also a quick shout out to Nicole, who does the Red 5 reading. This whole idea sort of came from that. We over the last couple months, just over a couple months, we were reading week to week, like 4 or 5 chapters at a time of Heir to the Empire, and then we got together, discussed it. That's how I met Ian here, and we had a great time doing that. And he had this idea of well, what if we did something with comics sometime? And so since comics has been a thing over here at Dingus Den, that's how this sort of started. But credit to Nicole and Ian for helping get this idea get off the ground, and here we are for the first one. Like I said, Green Lantern, No Fear. Let's just go ahead and start off. What did you all think of this story?
I enjoyed it. I've never read it. That particular, I guess it's miniseries, short series, I guess. The ending was a bit just fast paced. It just abruptly, to me, anyways. It was okay.
I definitely have my thoughts on that ending as well, but we'll get to there.
Yeah, I definitely have more to say about the ending too.
Overall for me, I thought it was a really good read. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a solid, I guess technically this is the beginning to the main Green Lantern that Jeff Johns did. He has so much that he's done with Green Lantern. So many Green Lantern ideas kind of come from this. Not particularly in this story arc, but in his overall run of Green Lantern. So this is a good starting place for Green Lantern. Arguably, you could say.
I'm not sure you can read this, or at least really. I'm not sure this is a good entry point. I think Rebirth, that came right before this, kind of has to be read to understand what is happening here at all. I know that. I know that this is part of just the main series, and they all have issue numbers and stuff of the main series. And I know that this arc, it was collected after the fact, right, into the story. So they're appeasing to the fans of old, but I'm not sure it's a great way to bring in new readers for this arc. I think there's way too much happening that you have no idea what's going on if you didn't read Rebirth at least.
Maybe. Rebirth should definitely be read before. I 100% agree. I don't know how much. I guess there's definitely some aspects where you need to read Rebirth. So I guess this is more of like number 2 of the Green Lantern overall of Jeff Johns stuff. But I think while Rebirth is definitely a way better jumping on point, I think this could still work. I don't think it gives too much. There's definitely a lot of connections, but I don't think it gives absolutely too much as far as needing to read it. However, it's like one of those things.
It definitely wasn't overdone with exposition. I'm not sure they even said anything within these issues about what he had done in his past life as Green Lantern with taking down the Green Lantern Corps. I'm just thinking about that now, but I'm not sure that was even mentioned, which I guess if you were a new reader, then you would be like, well, what was that all about? And
yeah.
But maybe it would be a little thing to be. I'm not sure how much they do this now, but in like the older comics, they would have the little asterisk that would tell you what issue to go read.
They still do it time to time. It kind of just depends, like how often they'll do it, but they definitely still do that. Maybe not as often, because it seems like older comics, anytime there's any reference, they're like, hey, do this, but then sometimes they'll like reference like a past thing, but not necessarily refer to it. But usually that's like connected to, like, say a series that like the same writer's doing, and you'd kind of like get, because you'd be farther along in the series, and you could be like, oh, okay, I know what event it's referring to.
Yeah,
I know they do that for the Amazing Spider-Man. Like,
yeah.
For Miles Morales, they'll go like, oh, continue in issue 5 or
Right.
whatever the case.
Yeah.
Well, I will say at least that I was kind of viewing this as a negative while I was reading, that it didn't have much of a connection to what was happening with the Green Lantern Corps. Kind of like they were purposely keeping Hal Jordan out of it, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it did allow for this arc to be overall very character focused for him, which,
Yes.
As I'm looking back on it now, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point, as we had a reference to it in issue 3 of this, I think. The fourth part of it. Green Lantern issue 3, I think. I believe that it was in there was a part of it where I think it was Hal Jordan. I don't remember who was talking about it, but they gave a reference to Kilowog being like this trainer He's going to train all these new recruits. The Corps is now going to be actively recruiting all these new members, while also getting back a few of
And
the
that
old
no one even
members.
knows him.
Yeah, they wouldn't even know Hal, and that was definitely part of it too. But point is, what I was getting to that though is, during the same time when this arc was coming out originally, I think is when they were also putting out a miniseries called Green Lantern Corps Recharged, I believe, and that is
Okay.
it's kind of what Green Lantern Rebirth did for this Green Lantern run, like kickstart what it is, and sort of like introduce the whole thing of like, yeah, this is what it is. Setting it up all this Green Lantern Corps Recharge was the same exact idea for the Green Lantern Corps series, but the like dialogue there that was specifically talking about the Corps at that moment in time, that was a direct reference to Green Lantern Corps Recharge.
Okay. Well, that would be the point to put a little asterisk to say, hey, go if you want to learn more about what's going on here,
Yeah.
and not just with Hal Jordan. Go read
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, but that was gonna. What made me think of that point though is you were saying, this is a very Hal Jordan centric story, and when we get this Jeff Johns run of Green Lantern, at least this main point prior to the New 52 reset, that's all focused on Hal Jordan overall as a character, just his character, and so, and then if you want to like more
Well,
of
this
the
is
overall
my first
picture,
introduction to him.
yeah, and I think that it's a good point to have as an introduction to the character as well. But what I was about to say though,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh no, you're all good. But what I was just about to say though was, if you're wanting to read more of like the overall thing, I see what's going on overall with the bigger scope, I guess, of the Green Lantern Corps, or read more on like your other sort of like favorite characters of the Corps, like it focused a bit on like your Kyle, Guy Gardner, and Kilowog. They all had big roles, as well as a couple other new characters that they established as well. So,
Okay.
definitely recommend reading that. It was good. The Green Lantern Corps Recharge is pretty good. I just recently read that.
Well, yeah, because I've told you before about Kyle Rayner. It was my introduction to Green Lantern, and I actually haven't had that much exposure to the Green Lantern story. So I have
Gotcha.
I have basically Kyle's introduction story into the series, and then I've seen the Justice League animated show with Jon Stewart, and I've seen several of the movies with Hal Jordan. But overall, I don't really know anything about Hal Jordan except what I haven't read the story about what happened with his downfall, but I've gotten the gist of all of that. So this really is my first real introduction to him, getting into his thought process and his character.
Okay, yeah, that's I think it's a good point because this is kind of like sparks a reset on kind of his life in a way, because prior to this story, specifically Green Lantern Rebirth talks about this, that the whole point of Green Lantern Rebirth is this bringing back Hal Jordan from the dead and explaining why he went evil, and it's essentially this is the return of Hal Jordan, and so this is like the first arc of, hey, Hal Jordan's back, now he's center stage here. And so, Caleb, what was your how familiar are you with Green Lantern overall?
Yeah, not very familiar. Like I used to read a lot. Just, just like the what you guys were referencing before, the Rebirth. I read a little bit. He's one of those characters that, like Hal Jordan specifically, I've always enjoyed. I've always liked Green Lantern, but it's one of those characters I'm like, well, I don't want to dive deep into it because it's like something else catches my attention.
I feel
But
that.
I'm always up for a Green Lantern story. Like it's one of those. Like for this particular story that I read, No Fear, there was some aspects of the story that I'm like, well, what happened here is particularly that I don't remember his name, bad names, but the guy that lost his hand, the guy
Black
that gets,
Hand.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
have no idea who that is. So, but
Yeah. We'll get into
I have
that.
no interest. I mean, I do have some curiosities to go look it up, but I'm like the story in that series filled enough of my curiosity. I'm like, oh well, he just wants revenge, or he wants
Mm-hmm.
just like any other villain. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not. I get most of my information of Green Lantern from like the Justice League series movies or anything
Gotcha.
like that. So.
Good. Nice. Yeah. For me, I don't know what made me latch on to liking it at first. I think the whole thing is that it's space and what they could do with their wings is just cool because it's their limit is their
Yeah.
imagination, and so
Right.
uh, I think the first Green Lantern I read was I started reading New 52, but then I did go back and read Rebirth, and I read this story years ago, I think, but I didn't remember much of it. But besides the point, though, I've been a really big Green Lantern fan. I've really, uh, I just really like everything that Green Lantern brings to the table overall, and so, it's cool to be able to. I enjoyed going back to this story after being a while from checking it out, and so just where the Green Lantern series goes from here is awesome, but uh, but yeah. So as far as this story goes, though, No Fear, it begins with a story called Flight, direct from the DC. What is it called? Secret Files 2005 that came out in 2005. And I actually, I'll let you all go first. What did you think of it? That sort of flight story that sort of opened up with. I did notice on the DC Universe reading order though, it's put at the end, even though like in the trades and everything else, it's at the very beginning, and that makes sense too because it came out before of it. But
yeah. Yeah, in the DC app, in
yeah,
their little thing that collected all those issues into this story arc, it puts
yeah.
it at the end. But I read it first.
Okay, good. It makes no sense to read it at the end. I don't. It makes zero sense to. I don't know why they did, but
I think it's separate enough that it works either way.
how I viewed it is, I think it was just
Except for Kyle being gone.
right. For me, I think it was just a great introduction, or not introduction, but like it's great characterization of all the characters and stuff that happens there, right? You really go deep into the motivation of Hal Jordan here and just really getting a feel for how he is, of a character he is. And so it's real. I just think it's such a great way here to just talk about, to go through what the character specifically of Hal Jordan represents. And I think that's why it serves a lot better being at the beginning, because then with you sort of having this characterization of Hal Jordan in mind, it really gives you a nice setup, certainly, and maybe helping a little bit learn his motivation, knowing his motivation as you continue reading through just sort of this Green Lantern run in general.
Yeah, I suppose that's
Yeah.
why I feel like you don't necessarily need to read Rebirth or anything prior, because it's a good just filler, like a good starting point of like who this character is in a way.
Yeah, and I forgot, this also has the profile things at the end, so that gives more backstory to all the things that are involved with this arc.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Well,
do
not
love how
everyone.
they're always bribing the security guard, and
Yeah.
the currency goes up over the years. It kind of gives you
Oh
an
yeah.
idea of how times change.
It's also a nice way of how like the story kind of just repeats itself, right? We see this sort of same story over 3 generations, and it just all builds upon the character of Hal at the center. Um, Obviously, you had other characters, other vital characters, we should say. Um, that's important to Hal in each of those two. You know, he had the first one with his father, second one with Hal with Carol, and then third one being with Kyle there. So, but yeah, I just really enjoyed it as a great way to have a way of character showing what the character of Hal Jordan is overall. Just a nice little standalone story, but it's at the same time it is a nice setup for just having the characterization there that I think can be important knowing, especially if you're not as familiar with the character of Hal Jordan going into reading the rest, like when we get into the main meat and potatoes of the story.
Yeah, as I said, I don't really know much about Hal Jordan as a character, and as we go through the rest of the story, and I'll talk about this more later, I'm not sure I even really like him. But sorry, but this story specifically here, I do really like him. It shows a lot about his character in regards to especially Kyle. And this was something that happened in Rebirth as well, and I won't say too much about that since we're not really discussing Rebirth. Uh, uh, but when bringing Hal Jordan back, uh, there was, from what I've read, there was discussion of killing Kyle Rayner off, or at least there was very much the opportunity to kill him off. And they didn't do that. They bring Hal Jordan back, and I'm not sure on the specifics exactly, but I've just had a feeling that people didn't, well, possibly didn't like Kyle, or at least didn't like that Hal Jordan was replaced, no matter who it was. But in Rebirth and here as well in this story, Jeff Johns kind of went out of his way to show how much Hal appreciated Kyle and what he did to fill that role, and kind of bring back what Hal himself had destroyed. And so I noticed that while reading Rebirth, and I'm like, okay, they're showing, okay, so Hal likes him, so everyone should like him, yes. But they really show, especially in this story, this First Flight story, or what is it just called Flight? Whatever
Yes.
it's called, this little story here, they show how important Kyle is to him, because as you said, they go through 3 iterations of this same kind of thing. He goes on the flight with his father, he goes on the flight with Carol, and so it sets up how important that little getaway into this that little secret flight into the sky is for Hal, and how important the people are in his life that he does that with. And so to end it with having Kyle be one of those people, just says so much about Hal Jordan's character and the respect that he has for Kyle.
That's a very good point, and I 100% agree. I really appreciate how much, just what Jeff Johns really does with everything overall, because I feel like he does a great job of respecting Came Before It, but at the end of the day, he kind of gives like what the majority wants, like obviously he realizes, well, most people want Hal Jordan, because I feel like to most people that's who Green Lantern is to them. He's not throwing away this era of Green Lantern of Kyle that came just before. So he's very much still keeping Kyle around, and he's still being a main player, at least as far as what I've seen in Green Lantern, in the Green Lantern Corps series. So, but yeah, I think that's a very good point. Does anyone have any other sort of like thoughts on Flight before we move on to the, I guess, main bit of No Fear? Alrighty, I guess we'll just move on then. Green Lantern, No Fear. Now, I guess actual main part of it, where it's the first 6 issues of is 2005. Green Lantern.
Yep.
And so, I kind of viewed it as like first 3 issues was its kind of own story arc, and then the other 3 was that latter story arc.
Yeah.
And so, the first 3 issues deals with, well, first you sort of see like recap or like a very short version, a shorter told version of Hal's origin there, of how he got the ring, and you see him there flying around and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, though, the threat of this story deals with we have this build up of this sort of like android looking sort of creature blowing up people, and if you know Green Lantern stuff, you probably guess what that is. That being a manhunter, and so that being the main threat here, and learning that military is using alien technology, which is frowned upon, and like I said, these 2 different manhunters, we see a good bit of them in this story, and they do a lot of other things that obviously connect to other things. There's a lot of callbacks here as well, but overall, it's just a story of how Jordan taken on these 2 rogue manhunters. So, what did you all think of, I guess, these arcs, or this arc specifically?
Reading that. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, are you talking about, do you want us to focus on issue 1 specifically, or the entire Manhunter arc, so the first 3 issues?
I think we could just focus on it here, just generally being the overall 3 issues here of the main story there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Caleb, you go ahead.
No, it's alright. I just had the thought immediately when I was reading it. I just thought instantly of John Martian Manhunter. I don't know much about the DC verse of Man. I mean, I know a little bit, but it was nice to see that correlation of like, can't remember what they call it. What's the society called again? The manhunters in this story. Anyway,
The people who built the Manhunters?
yeah. As it's the Green Lantern Corps.
Where they just called like the Guardians, or whatever they were.
Yeah. The tiny little guys.
Yeah, the 2 little blue guys.
The big heads. Yeah. But yeah, it's and it also kind of reminded me of like, it's a nice little like for me anyway. Like I thought of Terminator. I don't know, my mind goes to different things all the time. It's like a spider web of thoughts. But I just thought, man, John Martian and Terminator and Obviously, I don't know if they got any what's the word, like inspiration from those stories, uh, but yeah, it's the whole UFO and trying to build weapons or vehicles out of alien technology. It's
Mhm.
always a bad move, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice.
All right, cool.
I gotta makes me want to go read more about at least that the figure in the later into the story, like in the hood, that's like their boss, whatever, their new leader. It makes me curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that is. Well, we'll get to that later. I guess, but I definitely don't know who they're referring to. I mean, like I said, it's just a hooded figure. I honestly don't know where this goes. I haven't read the entirety of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run to know exactly what this connects to, but I'm definitely very curious. But yeah, no, I don't know who that is. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, this whole story does set up a bigger story, but it still stands up, I think, well on its own, and it gives a lot of nice homages to stuff that came before it. However, to answer
Yeah,
what...
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say though. I just quickly Googled that Manhunters originally appeared in March of 1977, and so they've been around for a while here, and I know they've been a big part of Green Lantern lore for a long time. But yeah, they've had a lot of interesting roles to play in the overall Green Lantern story. But anyway, what were you about to say, Ian?
Well, I was gonna say that that initially kind of uh, bothered me. I know we're talking about the first 3 issues at the moment, but that we didn't that story didn't continue on into the next 3 issues.
Sure.
Uh,
It felt
and
weird, right? Like I'll be honest, it's like usually when people write these arcs, it's like an overall 6-issue story, but then it's kind of like this is kind of a case of like a smaller 3 than another 3, which I feel like isn't
well,
typical
yeah,
for more modern story arcs of this nature. Typically,
well, yeah, I was gonna say that initially bothered me, and when I was reading the next 3 issues, I was like, why are these 3 issues even a part of this arc? And I'll talk more about this later,
yeah.
because it just didn't seem connected. But by the time I got to the end, in the last issue, it did connect. And again, I'll talk more about that later. But it made me, you know, it's made me realize that once again, as we were saying, this story is about how, and not about all the extra stuff going on, because while there is this extra stuff going on, they're not going crazy deep into it. They're not as we said, not showing, okay, who is this masked figure who now controls the Manhunters. So they're not going deep into crazy exposition or diving too deeply into new story material right now. Everything right now is about Hal Jordan's character himself, and how the things that he is confronting in these episodes specifically reflects his character arc. So like with the Manhunter, the one that is being chased, the one that has been deemed obsolete, it's very much a mirror to Hal and himself, specifically in the 3rd issue, where the Manhunter is about to die, is about to cease existing, and it finally has an emotion, and that emotion is fear. And it fears what comes next. it's facing oblivion and it's fearing what comes next. While Hal, on the opposite side of that, is facing life and a second chance at life. And what is next with that? And while I'm not sure he exactly is feeling fear, he's at least uncertain about what his next step really is.
I think that's all very well said right there. I what a great way to break this down. You're absolutely right about all that. I think. Um, yeah, no, I like I said, I completely agree with all of what you said there. It's a great way to really contrast that aspect of how with the Manhunters, and I also just personally really appreciate the fact of like Manhunters is kind of it's like a classic Green Lantern threat. I feel like whenever you think about like big overall Green Lantern threats, especially prior to stuff that was introduced and what Jeff Johns does, I feel like the two biggest things is like Manhunters and Sinestro. So it's great to see Manhunters help kick off this main bit of this new iteration of Hal Jordan. And so it's a nice way to
Especially
make it.
since
Oh, go
so
on.
they were the Green Lantern's predecessors, right?
Yes.
So they were
yes.
the first attempt at being what the Green Lantern Corps is supposed to be, right?
That is correct. But obviously.
Okay, yeah, which again works perfectly with this story.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, no, there's all this like arcs on like Manhunters, especially previously to this, and so, lots of cool stuff that goes in with them. But
Can I
yeah,
ask though? This is a little aside.
sure.
So Caleb mentioned, he was reminded of John Jones, the Martian Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
Why is John Jones called a Manhunter? Like, I've never seen him act as like a bounty hunter or anything, but not that I know much about him beyond watching Justice League or Supergirl or whatever. But
Sure.
why is he called that?
That's a very good question. I do not have an answer to that I wish I could give very much. Cause like you're right. I don't know.
I think I'm probably completely wrong. One second, someone's at the door.
Oh, you're all good. Yeah, no, I don't know. Let me look here. It's called so just this is just what Google says. When I first typed it in, it says Martian Manhunter is called so because the Martians were originally inspired by the Manhunters to seek justice. The Manhunters came to Mars and taught the people many lessons about the nature of justice. Once they left, the Martians even created stones to honor the Manhunters, adopting their name and their order to carry on doing good. John
Wait,
Johns.
did that say the Manhunters, the robots, came to Mars?
That's what this is saying. I'm not sure where this is from. I'll have to look into
Ooh.
specifically where that's from. But that
Well,
would be
that's really
very.
interesting
I was going
then.
to say that'd be very interesting to delve into. I actually did not know that was the origin of that name either. So the more you learn, I'll have to look into
Yeah.
it. I don't read much of Martian Manhunter. I feel like he's one of those characters he's a fantastic side character, but he usually doesn't have stuff about him. Sometimes, like usually when he has a story arc, it'd be like he'd have a bit in like a Justice League story since he's kind of always there. So every now and then they'll write him like a more Martian Manhunter centric story in a Justice League team up title. Although I do know they did do a mini series sometime in the last decade. I don't remember exactly when. I heard that's really good.
A mini series of a
Martian
comic
Manhunter.
book or
Martian Man. Yeah. I don't remember who wrote it, but yeah, comic miniseries.
okay.
Martian Manhunter. I'd have to look
Well,
into
I think he's really fascinating, and to have if that is what that little bit on Google was saying, that he has a connection to the Manhunters from this story and has a reverence for them. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Very much so. Definitely.
Caleb, did you hear what Spencer found
They
about his name?
had some correlation with this Green Lantern Manhunters.
Yes.
I think that I don't remember exactly. I have to look it up again. Like I said, what I was saying before. I don't know why it's so busy today. Like 3 people came by,
You're all
packages, and
good.
so. But
You're all good.
uh, I remember reading a story of Martian Manhunter where Superman and Batman, uh, like John the Martian. I think his name is John. I don't know why I keep. So it comes up in my head. But uh, they uh, Martian Manhunter went after Superman uh, because of uh, because of what's in Lost Track. It's the one where I think it's Doomsday or the other one. The one that kills Superman.
Doomsday,
Uh,
yes.
That's
essentially
Doomsday.
warning him about it. They come trying to find uh, you know protectors from Earth. So that's what I remember anyway.
Okay.
I don't know where I don't know where specifically. I think it was a movie maybe or something I read.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, back on track though to what we the comic though. I guess speaking of
I
the
wanted to
Manhunters themselves.
say,
Oh, go
uh,
on, go on.
I just wanted to say one cool little thing because I was rereading. I read the comic issues over the weekend, but I was rereading them this morning just to try to see any more links across the story and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And at one point in issue 1, he Hal Jordan goes back to his apartment in Coast City, and he's in his thoughts thinking about how Coast City is being rebuilt, and yet no one, even with government incentives to bring populations back to Coast City, no one has. And he says, I think they're all afraid. And in that panel, there is out in the ocean a tiny little shark fin sticking up from the water.
Oh, I see that. Huh.
So it's just this, great little foreshadowing,
Wow,
to what
that's
comes later.
yeah. No, I didn't even catch that when I read it last night. Okay. Huh.
So
That's a good
that's
one.
something great that this first issue actually did. Uh, I love it when things are kind of just, a blink and you miss it type foreshadowing thing.
Mhm.
And that's one of them. And also, with the Abin Sur, that's the guy's name, right?
Yes.
With his ship, showing the little uh, Hal Jordan's little origin story again at the beginning, and having the ship, and you know that specifically coming up again a couple issues later to see that that's where that engine was gotten from.
Yes.
So that's just a great little foreshadowing.
Yeah, Jeff Johns, he's very talented when he really tries. I think well, I guess a little side tangent, but I think, sometimes later on, like after a writer builds up a reputation, they kind of like get some things and kind of like lazily write things, even though they have the ability to write something great. It's just like, I'll kind of just, you know, I'll kind of just take the paycheck here, maybe a little more, and just do something a little more, not trying as hard, but anyway.
I'm not sure at what point in his career that happens, but that guy is so.
I think this
He's got
is the era where
he's
he's
got
best.
a lot of jobs to do.
Yeah, this is the era where he's definitely the best, because he did, like, his Green Lantern is often regarded as like the best Green Lantern run. I feel like, if we continue reading this, or if you all choose to go on and read this, however, there's so much that he does, and that really are just huge monumental moments that now, when a lot of people think Green Lantern, it's a lot of stuff that he built up and did. But anyway, to the story specifically, though, there is this one moment I really liked in issue 1 that I wanted to highlight. I really like how they were talking, like, about, they come across this yellow ship, and I like that callback there to where they're like, John Stewart's there, he's like, it's yellow, and then Hal's like, well, it would have worked back in the day, but it talked about the impurity that was trapped in the power battery, and now that necessarily won't stop them now. I just found it a fun callback to, like I said, older Green Lantern stuff, that because originally what made Sinestro so scary was he could harness the power of yellow, which Green Lanterns could not do anything against. And so I really like the way, specifically, kind of this whole story arc does, and is conquering the fear of this like no fear whole idea. Hence why it's called No Fear, to kind of like build up being able to be the Green Lantern better.
And not just ignoring or repressing fear.
Yes.
But being aware of your own fears, being aware of that, and still facing that head on and allowing you to overcome that.
Yeah. I very much agree. But yeah, no. These first 3 issues overall, I thought they were really good. I definitely really liked them. I think it was honestly a great start to this run. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think Jeff Johns continued to write Hal in a way to where you could really tell that it was Hal Jordan, and he's great with getting that character down to what I think he just really gets the character of Hal, and I think that shows in his writing here. And so I really like that, and really like, I just really like the threat of the Manhunters being there for this first main bit.
What I like to add is that whole shark segment. It reminded me instantly. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Street Sharks in the early '90s, 2000s.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Show.
I don't know why it came to mind, but that's like, well, I guess they're just gonna ride motorcycles next. But then it went on, and then not to detach from the story, but the King Shark. Marvel.
We'll get to that in a moment. We're not quite there. We can go ahead and move on there in a moment, unless if anyone has any other thoughts on the Manhunter story bit.
Well, I'm not sure if this means anything.
Okay.
So I'll have to look into this further myself, because I didn't notice it until I was just, while we're talking, flicking back through the issue.
Sure.
But when Hal, at the little flashback of his origin story, when he finds Abensher's ship, there's a panel where he's seeing the ship for the first time, and he's standing next to a burning bush. And, there's a story in the Bible about Moses and a burning bush. And it's basically, again, I'm not sure of all the ins and outs of that story and what it really means, but it's basically a vision of God, or at least a portent into talking to God. And so for Jordan, he's next to this, and he then goes in to see an alien, which he's never seen before, giving him godlike powers, And so I'm just wondering if that was intentional to have that in that panel or not.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very interesting point. Uh, I could see there being a link there, mainly because it's like that burning bush doesn't look like it was necessarily in the path of the wreckage. You know what I mean? Like how it's kind of like how standing there from the side, right by this burning bush, to where you can kind of tell like the ship's there at a distance and not even like facing towards them or away. It's like to the side he's looking at it from.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Very interesting point. I don't know. I guess to move on though. Guess what Caleb was getting to though. We sort of have like this whole second story arc. It begins with alien being run over, and then how's called it? Okay, so it's issue 4 here. That's where we got to see all this other references to the Green Lantern Corps recharge I was talking about. And we get to see Hal on Oa, and we got what's his name? The big head dude, Hammond, Hector Hammond. We get to see him come back, but as you will get into though, about the shark, we get this. We see this big shark come out later on, and that's like this big mutated shark. It makes you think it's King Shark. But
Is it not King Shark?
No, it's not.
Okay, I was wondering. I was confused about that. I'm like, wait, is this not the guy that is part of Suicide Squad later?
No, I mean, Hal gave a reference to him because he's like, well, I know a guy like that, right? And
Okay, that's what he
I
was
think he
saying.
name dropped him because like they were like, because you remember when there's that first investigation of it, that's reported to Hal. He's like, there's no way a shark could have bitten somebody off 20 feet from shore, right? But Hal's like, well, I know a shark like that. But then it turns out later, as we get into the mystery here, that there's all these aliens, creatures. I don't know exactly what these aliens were. They spoke a whole bunch of gibberish, that's for sure.
I think they referred to them as gremlins.
That's right. They were called gremlins. You're right. I remember that. Yes. And so,
No, they didn't speak German. The Green Lantern people that we meet at the end did.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I call but what was I gonna say though? But yeah, we had all these aliens doing stuff, and we sort of have this whole mystery of like, who are these weird yellow aliens that we later learn are gremlins, and we see like this thing that we think is King Shark because they're very obviously set up to where you do think it's King Shark at first.
Yeah.
And then we sort of have this at the same time too that we see connected to Black Hand. Well, he's missing a hand, but we see the gremlin creatures like essentially hijack a plane and steal him, kidnap him from this flight he's on. And so we have a lot of different plot lines going on here, but it seems like the first main one that Hal addresses though is he visits the Hector Hammond for a bit, and they sort of you get to see a bit of Hector. He's kind of a messed up guy. Not kind of, he really is. But going on from that, though, we do see the big shark creature and Hal go at it underwater, and like we have this huge action sequence where they just go at it underwater with each other. And from there, gosh, there's just so much that goes on here. But yeah, we have this like huge water sequence. We do see Black Hand grow his hand back. There's just so much that happens here. I feel like in this last one, so much more moving pieces. That all eventually links up though to Gremlin sort of being the mastermind of Black Hand growing back this hand that's able to absorb people's lives, and we going to what that King Shark thing was. It got I don't remember exactly where it said it, but there's something about where it talks that they were all it was a mutation of a human of a shark form. This shark, like the alien, they called the alien a human evolution of like however many years. It was like a really long time. I think they said a similar thing about the shark, of that being its evolution.
Yeah, they did.
And so that's why it's not King Shark. I know King Shark's something a bit different. I don't remember his origin.
I had just been wondering if this was King Shark's origin, because this took place in 2004, so I didn't know if this was when that character actually first appeared and this was his origin.
He appeared, I want to say, a while. Let's see. His first appearance, King Shark, was in 1994.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know you've been around for a little longer, but yes. But yeah, no, I did enjoy the Big Shark character. Definitely gave off heavy King Shark vibes. And then I really also enjoyed seeing Black Hand. One of the moments that stood out to be the most is the end of issue 5, where he's just like going around the hospital and he's just like, he's ruthless there. He's murdering essentially a whole hospital to regrow his hand. But yeah. What did you all think of this later half of the story?
I think it was action packed. Is it kept trying to catch your attention, keep you reading.
Lots of it.
I'm trying to find the panel itself. I feel like I'm making it up, but I feel like this shark. I heard this. Yeah, just bit through the lantern and exploded. So I mean,
yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, exactly. Did he destroy the lantern?
I'm sure that he can get another one. I think I'm not sure, but I don't know how the origins of that.
Did.
I know he can, but that one, as far as I know, that one's special.
Okay.
Like Oliver Queen held on to that for him for years.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if
I guess it's just a short
how
there.
Correct.
That's a as far as I know, it's just a short. That's what it seems like, right? Because it lets out this massive explosion, and that's because it got destroyed, right? We literally see across the page it goes crackoom and giant explosion. And so, but yeah, I don't know if we necessarily see him getting another, because I don't know if he had to use another lantern. I don't think so.
The reference to like the whole battery charge, power to the ring keeps going down, and back to not to go too far back in the conversation of Manhunter, but basically he loses power in his ring too, and then gets the energy back by blowing the guy's head off. Well, not entirely, but
getting it from his
the whole
head,
motto.
Because he sucked it,
so,
and then You
Oh,
attacked the
yeah,
plane
yeah.
and then got it back. I found that was a pretty cool moment.
So like yeah, then the rest of it, I'm not sure how it doesn't really reference. Well, that I remember anyway. How much power he has left in the ring, fighting the rest of
Yeah,
the.
that last issue kind of doesn't. Because the lantern being destroyed happens very near the end of issue 5, and then
yeah,
issue 6 happens, and uh issue 6, I don't know about you all, but it took a lot more adjusting than it should have, all because of that change of art style. Like, what a drastic change of art style there. That really threw me for a loop
yeah.
there. And on top of that, I feel like some of the story wasn't wrapped up the best it could have been. Like, I still liked it, but I definitely felt like a bit of it could have been better. Um, I know the big thing that sort of annoyed me with it was we we have that one moment at the end, right? With we see Black Hand going through the hospital killing people. That's the last thing we see of Black Hand. Then all of a sudden, at the beginning of this new issue, not right at the beginning, but very near the beginning, Black Hand kind of just comes out of nowhere. It's like, wait, they didn't set up Black Hand like specifically going after Green Lantern now. Like, we know how he got the hand into the powers now, but they didn't set him up on the course of going after Hell. So I was just like, what? This that took me a moment too, because I felt like they could have done another little bit of something with Black Hand there a little bit.
I was more just confused about what his role was. I mean, I knew he was going after uh, Green Lantern because he blames Green Lantern for his hand getting cut off.
Right.
But not just cut off, disintegrated. but uh, but I was not sure what his role was with the aliens here. So they were the ones to give him this power to recreate his hand through taking the lives of other people, right?
Right, it was like this
But
power. I feel like his role was to be a distraction to Green Lantern, because the issue ends very openly where we see all these other experiments with him there, right? That they have, right? Or is it the military that has it at that point? I guess the military, right? Uh,
at the very end,
yes, because we see all these army trucks with stuff on it. But
yeah.
and so, but either way though, I feel like though is kind of like above all the distraction, so they could have tried to get it, but obviously Hal Jordan still foiled their plans and got the UFO sent away.
Okay, so little backtrack here, but in line with what you're saying. So, are you saying? Do you think that the Gremlins specifically went after Black Hand and recruited him to use him to distract Green Lantern because he was on their trail already?
I don't know if he was already on their trail, but I feel like
Well, he was because he was investigating the Martian that turned out to be a human evolution thing, and then he was
got
going
okay.
after
I see what you're saying.
the
That's how you're
shark,
saying.
which was
I thought you were
also
referring to Black Hand there for a moment. Okay, I see what you're saying now. Yes, yes, yes. I feel like that's what it is.
okay. That makes more sense because initially I was like, why would they take him? Why would they do this?
Yeah, because like even though they don't necessarily say any of that, that's what it feels like, Because when you look at this last issue, the sharks there are fighting him a little bit, but you see a lot more of Black Hand fighting it while fighting Cal Jordan, while Hal is still trying to while he's trying to figure out what's going on, and so and
Mhm.
that's the most sense I can make of the situation, and so that's what I'm gonna
Well,
go
it does
with.
make sense. So actually, thank you for that. It makes more sense now.
I just find it very
But I
interesting.
was even like trying to decide, was he like their henchman or was he in charge of them?
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. So
I'll
yeah,
say
what you're saying
Black
makes more.
Hand comes out. We see a lot of Black Hand over the course of what I know of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, so um, will not be the last you see of him. I'll tell you that right now without saying anything else. Uh, but yeah, no. Just as far as this last story goes, though, like I said, I liked it. I don't think it was wrapped up as nicely. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Gremlins at all. I definitely feel like there's something else that's popped up before. I'm just not familiar with them. Do you have any thoughts on this bit, Caleb? Overall, of the last half?
I guess they fed the gremlins after midnight. I guess.
Right, that's what happened, right? You know, they
Reading this last one, like I said, the ending was. To reiterate what you guys have said, there's a point to where I was just completely. It lost me because I don't know exactly what happened. There's a panel that shows him fighting Black Hand, and uh, the ring on his hand goes like dark brown and starts cracking, and then the
Yeah,
next panel explodes. So it made me
Oh,
think: did the ring explode? Did like lose? Like was it? He didn't lose his uniform, so I guess he still has it. So
I don't think
uh,
his ring exploded. I think his shield exploded.
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Although, wait, which hand does he wear the ring on? His right? Yeah.
Yeah,
fun
I'm
fact that I
not
uh,
seeing the ring in the.
yeah.
Yeah, his
And
ring is
the next
gone,
panel, yeah, the rings and this shows both hands, and the ring is not on either hand. So,
but he
like,
has his ring back
yeah,
when
fighting.
he is,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
a few
releases
panels later.
King Shark character and fights more gremlins, and
which part? Oh, I missed that.
it's they're still on the ship, and they're let's see, it's yeah, he
Yeah,
goes
it's
on
right at the
the
beginning of
ship.
the issue.
Yeah, he frees Hammond from them because the gremlins are cutting his head open.
Okay.
Frees him, captures gremlins, and then uh, they fight a little more, and then yeah, Hal gets under a shield. Then they start the Black Hand starts monologuing, saying like
Yep.
it's the blackest night, and then explodes. Yeah, so I'm not sure. From there, I kind of got was like, all right, what's going
But
on?
but yeah, it's not just it's just the angle you can't see his ring because a couple pages after that, uh, there's a panel showing Black Hand getting his hand on Hal's face when Hal is having flashbacks to his promise to his mother.
Yeah.
You
All
see
right,
both of his hands, and there's no ring on either of them.
right. So,
But then two more pages later, his ring is back.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't necessarily like this art style. Like, I'm not saying the art's bad, but like, I just felt like it's so weird to just switch over to such a different art style in the last issue of this arc, and I definitely feel like there's some art inconsistencies that this artist has when looking at it. Now, like, he
Yeah,
definitely has a
that's
unique art style that I definitely feel like you don't see in your modern comic, like compared to like everything else that we saw prior to it. But
hmm
it it's such a wide gap to where I didn't necessarily like being forced with this different art style in the last one, and so
I'm sure it was some scheduling issue
I think that's
that
what it is.
happened,
That's what
but
it feels like.
I agree. It's kind of I like the art style, but yeah, it was like what for a second there.
It took adjusting to, and so
But even so, art style or not, uh, a lot of this issue, and I think some of the previous issue, was kind of muddled, and it's like, okay, what is actually happening? What's just in his head? What's going on here?
It's just all over the place.
some of it definitely was. I definitely agree. It's like I said, I definitely think the story could have been wrapped up. Because they're obviously doing something here. Something I did just look into is these were the first appearance of the Gremlins. And
Oh, okay.
so, fun fact there. And they've also apparently appeared on screen on the Young Justice TV show. Fun fact. But
Hmm.
yeah, so um, yeah, I don't know if I have much more honestly. Like the what was it? I did like the reference at the end here where like German, that's Croatian, and they're like, what? Oh, the whole what was it? What, you think Egypt is the only place on that mud ball that stole their language from off-world? Next thing you'll be telling us Earthmen invented the match. Goodbye. And so
Yeah.
I like that little bit there that one Green Lantern says, and so I really enjoyed that.
That was really interesting to have. Uh, this might have come up earlier too when he first went to Oa and saw different Green Lanterns and stuff.
Mhm.
But like part of this, they were saying. Actually, the Ring said this. The oh no, wait, was the Ring translating?
Ring can
No,
translate.
no, no. It was
Okay, no.
it was the Ring itself. The Ring was saying because they were taking the Gremlins into custody, and so the Ring read off the Book of Oa uh, bylaws, saying you are
Yes.
in violation of Section 414.1 of the Book of Oa, interfering in the natural evolution chain of a sub-level organism. And
Yes.
then Hal's like, sub-level? So it's basically dissing the entire human race.
I
And
yeah, it's so funny.
these other Green Lanterns are kind of also
Yes.
dissing the entire human race.
Yes.
So it's just interesting to view that perspective.
I always find it amusing anytime when you see aliens dissing the human race like that, like having it to where much like it does, and like you see this pop up like a fair amount like every now and then in just any sort of Green Lantern title, it seems, of them being like, oh yeah, it's one of those humans that are like, oh, I'm surprised you ever even got a ring in the first place. And so yeah, I enjoy it when they do that though. Because I always just find it funny, like in our history, how we always think that like we're in the center of everything sometimes, so but I did really
Well,
like that detail.
I did have more to say about the end of the arc if you didn't.
Go for it.
Okay, so as you said, they could have wrapped up this arc in better ways, uh, and initially I felt reading these issues like, how does this have a connection to the previous issues? But also, I was able to, with the Manhunter arc, I was able to relate that to Hal's character and what he was going through. And I was like, okay, is this really doing that with these other things? But but it does for Hal's character, at least. That was, I think, the most successful part of this arc, to have a Black Hand who basically right now is the hand of death, and you know, Hal has faced so much death over his life, and has faced his own death, but has now returned, and you know, he says he's not afraid of that, and so I thought this issue for him specifically was really, really good, because it gave it gave answers to what had been set up in the first couple issues, like with him, you know, years ago punching that guy that got him kicked out of the Air Force. And you know, it took us a while to find out why he did that, and it's it's his character. You know, it shows that he never gives up. You know, he won't quit, even when he was basically forced to quit so he could go see his mother on her deathbed, even though she passed away before he got there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he couldn't quit the Air Force. He had to get himself kicked out, you know, and so in that effect, I think it had a really good bookend to this arc, and was a really good through line to really get to the core of Hal's character here.
Yeah. I didn't quite make all those connections on myself, but I definitely think that's good. I could very much see all that too. I, I don't really have much more to add on what you said there. But I think that's very well said. Yeah, no. The only other sort of thing in general I have to add on to this is I'm not quite sure what this end panel's setting up. Because you see him in there, he's in the tube now. We have that Manhunter head that we saw earlier. One of the Manhunter heads we saw earlier, so we're just in the tubes, and now all of a sudden Hammond can speak a little bit, saying, you know, things are a little bit different now, so we'll see. Something big, definitely setting up something for the next arc or two. So, but we'll see. Is there any other sort of like overall thoughts that anyone has on that? Like anything on the story anyone wants to add? Before we wrap this up.
I did just want to. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, man.
It was just a great story. It was a nice little dip into the Green Lantern world. You know, like it felt like it definitely, like, I don't know when the next issue or like series continuation, you know, came out. It felt like it was just something they threw out there for a waiting period just to get to the next storyline.
Yeah, like I said, so this is the first, so it collects 1 through 6 of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, as well as what is it? The Secret Files one shot. And so I don't remember. I literally just looked up what the second arc was called earlier today, so I could give a shout out to it, and I completely forgot what it's called. And so, but yes. What were you about to say there, Ian?
Well, I have two things.
Go on.
One of them is that he went and apologized to the general, and the general was like, okay, you want back on the Air Force, you're back on. And then he's like, it'll be nice to have a Green Lantern on the Air Force. And it's so it's kind of like when a hero like Superman has a secret identity, and then the person that they're in love with, who doesn't know their secret, but kisses them in their superhero form, and then that person knows who they are, because they've kissed the other person before, the other identity before.
Sure.
So it's like Lois kissing Superman, and if she's kissed Clark before, then she would know it's him. So it's kind of like that. He's like, I've only been decked by a subordinate, twice in the past 20 years, and so I know it was you.
It reminds me of that the some people don't like the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds, but there's a scene there. It's like the girl's like, you don't think I know who you are because I can't see your cheekbones. Like, so it's I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same correlation.
Definitely.
But it just kind of makes me wonder, did this general let him back onto the Air Force because he apologized and showed, some moral character, or does he have some more something else in mind, wanting to use him? And we do see him over the next few issues,
Yes.
within this arc of, kind of calling on him. And sure, it was good of him to do that, but it's like, what else does this guy have up his sleeve,
I definitely feel like it's the latter of some sort of ulterior motive of him wanting to use Green Lantern more, right? Like, we see that. Like, I feel like we see it a little bit. We just don't know the full extent it'll go later on. But I definitely feel like it's going to be a big factor later on.
Yeah,
Well, the other
I
thing
thought he just had his hooks set into him deep already. As soon as he said that, he's like, yeah, he's got him. Gonna use him.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I want to say was, so again, this is kind of more my introduction to Hal Jordan,
Sure.
And while there are definitely aspects of his character, especially like, as I said in the First Flight story, not First Flight, or whatever that little off story was called, showing his moral character. I really liked that about him, but a lot of it, I don't really like his attitude. He's very aggressive. He's much more likely to punch somebody first, and he even says, uh, uh, when he and John are investigating that spaceship, uh, you know, he says that basically all of his most important relationships have started with the two of them wanting to hit each other, and so it just is making me think about, because as far as I know, the Guardians don't choose the Green Lanterns. The rings themselves choose who is Green Lantern, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just looking at a few of the people that the rings have chosen. So you got Hal Jordan, you have Guy Gardner, you have John Stewart. Kyle wasn't exactly chosen; he was given a ring by Avensor, as far as I know. Not Avensor, by Ganthet. but it's like, so the ring chooses people for their ability to be fearless and to overcome fear, from what I can tell. But does its decision go beyond that with moral character? Because like Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner are all very aggressive people who do not like authority, who will punch you before anything else, especially Guy Gardner. So it just made me think about the Ring's uh, choices and who it chooses, and if it chooses technically good people, or is its main choice factor just people that can be fearless?
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look in.
that's
It makes me want to read more now.
I'm not
Look into that.
completely sure, but there's so many. I think that brings up a point though. Like, there's I think just so many parts of Green Lantern that just makes it seem very interesting. Uh, and that's just, I feel like one of the big things of it is there's so much to unravel about what the core is and what it stands for. I think part of that being what you were talking about just there. And then later on we get the introduction of all these other cores and stuff, and so it's just really interesting, like all the whole what everything stands for in Green Lantern is, and the world of Green Lantern is just very interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really drawn to it. And so it just
Well, it
it's really
also
interesting.
just makes you wonder if part of it is, so, you know not going too far beforehand, but Hal Jordan destroyed the Green Lantern Corps.
Yes,
They retconned it to be that he was possessed by Parallax,
yes,
so it wasn't actually his fault, which I have a bit of a problem with, basically taking all agency from him, that nothing's his fault. But I read something that Jeff Johns wrote, that he had to do it that way because uh, he killed a lot of people, and you can't just write that off. So
sure.
he basically had to have him not have uh, any responsibility for all of that. But here it's like, okay, people would, I think, still be extremely wary of Hal Jordan, and
Mm-hmm.
people like his friends, like Jon Stewart, are definitely more understanding. Uh, but it definitely felt like the Green Lantern Corps and the Guardians were purposely wanting to keep him out of the rebuilding. And I'm just wondering if they can't take his ring from him, because I would think that they would. I mean, if I was in that position, it would be all like, okay, I get what you went through. I understand that it wasn't your fault, but also we don't want anything like that to happen again. And so I think they would take the ring from him. But if the ring chooses the wearer, can the Guardians even take that from him?
I think they still can, and I feel like they still want him there because we did have that whole thing with Ganthid, at least helping revive him and Rebirth.
That's true.
And so now I think it'll be interesting how much of that will like come up later on potentially in this run of like if we what repercussions of him being revived and this reputation of, hey, there's all this stuff you did, all this bad stuff you did, right? Like, will that? I wonder how much that'll come up, if at all.
I hope it does. I'm going to keep rooting, definitely,
Oh,
but
for sure. Same here.
I hope that at least Batman is keeping an eye on him, because Batman was the one that didn't trust him at all in Rebirth. Even after Hal helped save everything, he still didn't trust him.
One of the
And
great things about
in
Rebirth.
issue one of this, they still, John Stewart went off to Watchtower, and Hal was like, "Well, Batman was there, so I wasn't gonna go."
Right.
So I hope to see that Batman's been keeping an eye on him. That would be really cool to
Just
see.
like Batman keeps an eye on everybody, you know?
That
but
is so true.
he's
He has a
the
plan
most
to take them all out.
he is the most paranoid. You're right. Justice League Tower of Babel, that's where you get that from. But yeah, no, Batman's such a
I was
paranoid
reading
person.
I was reading I know this is on your reading list, Spencer, so I won't say too much about it to spoil anything for you. But I was reading World's Finest, Batman and Superman World's Finest today.
One of them.
And yeah, it's one of them. But they come in contact with the Doom Patrol, and there's a character in there. I don't remember his name. I don't really know much about the Doom Patrol at all, but there was a character in there that has been keeping an eye on all the Justice League members.
Okay.
And Batman specifically is like, "You've been spying on us." And I'm like, "Pot calling kettle black. You do that all the time."
That's funny. That's very funny. I like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome. Anyway, no, I really enjoyed this No Fear story overall, though. I'm very glad you all were here to join and on this first discussion. Looking forward to others that we'll have of this, though. And what's next? We'll figure it out. And so,
I vote for the deceased. I just love that. I just love that series.
That's a pretty good read. We may check it out sometime. But anyway, thank you all for coming by. Do you all have any socials you all want to plug up at all?
I don't know.
No.
I'm here to talk on Discord. I'm at Nerf22 on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call that.
Twix.
Which I'm not on there that much because it's I love that name, Twix. Yeah, I'm not on Twitter that much because it's a minefield. I like safer spaces to talk about things that I like, and that's exactly part of the reason why I'm here.
Exactly. That's a whole reason why I love Discord as well. So I'm in a 100% agreement with you here. But yeah, go check them out. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. Anyone that listened, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all next time here on the Dingus Den. Thank you for watching this video. Before you go, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video. See you next time here on the Dingus Den.